Welcome back to Seaweed Brain. Now that we're on chapter 7 of Circe, we are live from Aiea, what we're going to just choose to refer to from now on as Aiea, like the town on Oahu in Honolulu. Covering chapters 7 through 11 today during our Hot Odyssey adaptation summer of Circe by Madeline Miller as we prepare for season 2 of Percy Jackson TV. We've got some returning guests. Stick around.
Imagine this. The best pasta sauce you have ever tasted sits abandoned on a plate. Wasted sauce. That is a tragedy. If only you had used Barilla al Bronzo pasta. Its bronze-cut texture holds your sauce and scoops up every last drop. The Italians call that scarpetta. Capture sauce the Italian way. Barilla al Bronzo. Click or tap the banner to find out more.
Meta AI is the personal AI that's tailored to you, now with its very own app. It's built to get to know you, offering helpful answers and inspiration. Looking for something to add to your bucket list? Meta AI goes beyond traveling the world. It remembers you're a basketball fanatic and suggests you attend one of the playoff games. Just start typing or speaking to get the answers you need, wherever and whenever, because Meta AI is your personal AI. Download the Meta AI app, now available on the Apple App Store and Google Play.
Welcome back, everyone. It is true. We are in our second episode on Circe, and we have some very highly awaited returning guests. We're recording this the day after we did the birthday live stream, and people were really sending it up in the chat for our iconic returning guests.
Say hello to Ola and Liv, everyone.
Hi, guys.
Hi.
We're so excited to be here. Thanks for having us back.
We coerced Ola and Liv to coming on for Circe. You guys were the first people I thought of because when I first read this book in 2020, I came back to Ann Arbor from up north in Michigan, and I had to have a conversation with Liv. I think that also might have been the first time I met you in person. Yeah, yes. It was the first time we met in person, and Ola was like, you guys both really like Circe. You should talk about it. And I think you were the only person I knew at the time who had also read the book. And that was a very special moment.
Yes, I was thinking of that too. I was like, oh my gosh, how full circle to have met for the very first time talking about this book. I love it.
Literally. And like Carter said, this is the day after we did our 5th birthday. That was also 5 years ago. There's a lot of things coming to fruition right now, changing over. We also have Ola, who is an original Seaweed Brain Sea of Monsters guest, come back to discuss more Odyssey content, which I think is wonderful and special. We're going to have all of the original Sea of Monsters people back as we prepare for the Sea of Monsters season of the TV show. And once again, if you're asking yourself, why are we here? Why are we covering Circe on this Rick Riordan-related podcast? Because we are interested in thinking circularly about the characters and events of the Odyssey without ever actually having to read the Odyssey. We want to think about the women who are involved. We want to think about how we can break down the Odyssey in a way that is not a quest narrative and how we can circle all of these themes in different ways. That being said, Ola and Liv, when did you guys first encounter this book, and where does it live for you in your personal life?
I first encountered it, when did it come out? 2019, I think?
2018, I think.
2018? Yeah. Right when it came out, my sisters read it, and then they were like, you must read it immediately and discuss. So it's very special to me because of that, because it's one that we tore through in a weekend and then got to all gab about. And then I've reread it several times since because it's a comfort book to me now.
Absolutely.
And I read it because I started dating Liv, and it was a summer where nothing was going on. Shout out COVID 2020. And I had just reread the Percy Jackson books, and I was still in my Greek mythology era. And this new pretty girl I was dating was also reading about Greek mythology. So I, of course, immediately read Circe and the Song of Achilles, back to back. And it was a great deep dive into Madeline Miller's mind.
Are you both ranking Circe above Song of Achilles people?
I am, personally, which I feel like is a hot take. I feel like a lot of people love Song of Achilles, but...
It's a hot take everywhere except this podcast.
I was going to say that. Ola, are you also firmly Circe ranking above Song of Achilles?
Well, as a lesbian, I think Circe is so much more sapphic coded than Song of Achilles is. And I love that gay men have their moment in Song of Achilles, but I feel so connected to Circe as a queer mystic witch that I think that it would always rank above Song of Achilles for me.
I'm so You just said like sapphic coded, and I was like, wait, isn't she gay? And then I thought to myself, no, there's not a single moment in this book where she exhibits lesbianism. And yet, in my mind, there was. Like
It was a pivotal moment where she could, where Hermes is like, hey, you could take these nymphs to bed. And she's like, no. And it's like, Hermes, I never want to see you again. It's like, whoa, 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 whoa. Being a lesbian isn't that bad. Like, be so for real. All you're doing magic with herbs and potions, and being a lesbian is what caused you to cast this man out of your house. Like, be so serious.
I think what we're reading into that, what we're choosing to read into that, is she is saying, I don't want to do like girl pederasty, which is real and right.
Right.
But
absolutely,
she should have, I don't know. There could have been some lady sailors.
Like one nymph, I know they're pretty. A dryad, maybe. Like, she's so into this nature aesthetic. Like,
this is something I think that I need to discuss more in like the last section when it comes to Penelope, because I think there's a lot that could have gone down.
Absolutely.
Yeah, she didn't complete her journey there.
No.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I just, what was the word again? Disidentification? For all intents and purposes, if Song of Achilles is the gay boy book, this could be the gay girl book, even though nothing happens, which is so typical of sapphic yearning media. Oh well. That being said, last thing I wanted to ask you guys, we did this as an exercise for ourselves last week, kicking off the book, but now I'm really curious what all our guests would have to say because this book is so sprawling. Is there one word that you would use to say, this is what this book is about? For context, our guest last week, Emily Garber, just used the word women.
Okay. I think maybe the word like home. Like, I feel like the Odyssey as a whole is obviously about coming home, and then we get this like reverse side of it with Circe. And I feel like, especially in this bit, like rereading this bit for the podcast, you get to see her like have a sense of home for the first time and go from not having that to building that for herself is very powerful. And especially like within the context of exile.
Absolutely.
I love that a lot, Liv. I love that so much. I think I'd say epic. It feels like a long, winding, all the different like intergenerational fights, the family aspect of it throughout. It feels like a long, familial epic, but through the lens of Circe's life. And I love that so much. It reminds me a lot of Jeffrey Eugenides and the way he writes sometimes. And obviously other epics like the Odyssey, but I think Madeline Miller does a really good job of like making this a much more accessible epic and really covering so many different key parts of Circe's like life in it.
I like both of those words a lot. I think that home is something I thought about for the first time making this outline, and that we can talk a little bit about Nostos and Kleos for Circe's version of this epic versus Homer's version of this epic. Okay, that being said, I think we should dive in. We are getting started with chapter 7. So at the end of our section from last week, we were heading into exile. So that was all of the like really difficult to read, passive daddy issues forming, stuck in the underground halls of Helios, turning Scylla into a monster, confessing her crimes, and then being sent into exile as a political pawn in the ever-brewing war between the Titans and the Olympians. So now we're on, once again, the island of which we're going to choose to pronounce as Iea, which is not how it's pronounced, but that's where Carter's from. Fun fact.
It is.
So we're going to honor, speaking of home, we're going to honor Carter's zip code by referring henceforward to Circe's island as Iea. This exile, meant to be a punishment, because on page 79 she says, to the gods, being alone, being deprived of their divine presence should be the ultimate punishment. At first she's all scared. She's like, oh, big scary island I've never been to before. But she's immediately drawn to the forest, which makes sense for her as a transfiguration witch that we're going to come to find out, because forests are always places of transformation in our like Western fantasy literature canon. And so she's going to go into the forest and like find her power and everything. And there's this great line. She says, the worst of my cowardice had been sweated out. In its place was a giddy spark. I will not be like a bird bred in a cage, I thought, too dull to fly even when the door stands open. I stepped into those woods and my life began. So at the beginning of this section we have today, she is thinking about this island as a sense of freedom, as not really punishment at all. That line, like a bird bred in a cage, for me immediately stood out. I don't know if that was like an alarm bell for anybody else. For me, it took me to Act 5, Scene 3 of King Lear, famous line where Lear says to his daughter, "We too shall sing like birds of the gilded cage."
Specifically his daughter Cordelia.
That's true.
Lear famously, the play where there's 3 daughters, 2 of them are kind of, to be grossly oversimplistic, like 2 of them are not there for him. We're not really there for them. And the last one is kind of like perfect angel, everything. But like, oh God, let me not try to speak too much off the cuff on Kim Lear. It's been a second. But he's speaking to the good daughter at this point, where he's saying basically like, prison isn't that bad if we have this. He has finally become wise to, the virtues of connection over, power and all these other like material trappings.
But in that instance, it's a father being like, oh, I cherish my father-daughter relationship so much that being trapped, at least we're trapped together. And in this case, It's like, I hate my father so much. I may be trapped, but at least I'm away from him. And now I can experience freedom, at least for the first part of this section. Carter, what did this quote bring out for you?
Yeah, I thought a lot about the 2 references I had immediately were Circe runs the outrun, which I do believe Eric and I are maybe the only people to have seen.
Ever.
Certainly none of the Academy voters saw it. I don't know what's up with that, but
it's on Apple TV.
It's on Apple TV. If you want to also have like a feminist communing with nature as a way of trying to rediscover identity, that's very much what's served there. I don't know. I feel like this is a classic reference and like a Virginia Woolf from a Wood's Own type of lineage. The idea that if you are like a socially trapped person, which is, I think, in Virginia Woolf's telling, like all of womanhood is this sort of like social prison, that like the only way to escape it is through this type of even if it's not self-imposed, this excommunication, this profound solitude where you can, do your hair differently and have muddy feet and, sing loudly in your voice that people wouldn't want to hear.
Both Carter and I think it was Carter and I, mentioned Katniss Everdeen in the first section of this outline because of the hair thing. She starts a new paragraph, Madeline Miller starts a new paragraph with saying, I learned to braid my hair back on page 82. And I thought, that's Katniss. That's like Violet Baudelaire putting her hair up in order to invent something. I also thought of Chihiro and her magical hair tie of friendship. Many such cases of women putting their hair back
references of this
to get to business.
There's like a lovely Twice B-side from 2016 that's about ponytails as a like symbol of self-actualization. The idea that when your hair is out of your face, you can step into your power as a girl or woman.
What is that song called?
The song's called Ponytail.
That's what I thought. Other quote I wanted to shout out at the beginning of the section on 83, I had a little pride, as I have said, and that was good. More would have been fatal. Obviously, nodding to hubris as a fatal flaw of a lot of Greek heroes, particularly Odysseus, I like that this immediately separates the 2 of them. As we start to really get into the part of Circe's life that is familiar to us through the Odyssey, that our main character of this story is no Odysseus. She's not a hero who is concerned with pride and all of that. And I don't even know if she could be said to have a fatal flaw because she's a goddess and not a hero, if that makes sense.
And I don't think she does have a fatal flaw. Like part of her whole thing is that she's not so static that there's like one thing that is always going to cause problems for her. Like even when it comes to pride, like she has such a journey through that where like she's never so prideful, and there's always that level of thing, but like her confidence and her relationships and all of these like attributes of her personality and her commitments really sort of they change a lot throughout the book, which is important. That's her whole journey. Yeah.
Do either of you guys have thoughts about whether or not Circe would have a flaw, like a fatal flaw, or if that's even like a structure we could use to put onto her and her story?
I feel like she doesn't, because having a fatal flaw, as you said, is so attached to being a hero, and that's such a gendered thing. At its core, like, none of these heroes have had to live through what she has had to live through of being a nymph, being lowly, being someone that doesn't matter in their society, like, in any way, and can just be completely walked all over. And I feel like that doesn't, like, leave a place for her to have too much pride, you know?
I wouldn't say, like, the flaw I'm thinking of is fatal, but like her compassion for mortals is something that I find really interesting, especially at the beginning when it's like you have only met one mortal. And then as you progress throughout the novel, you learn that she has a mortal voice and that she like cares so deeply about mortals being hurt, and like, I don't want to have too many spoilers, but this leads to lots of troublesome things happening as mortals come to her island. And I think that she like puts the comfort and safety of mortals over her own safety at times. And that I find so interesting, growing up in the hall with Titans, meeting Prometheus, to still find these people or mortals as redeemable and like someone to care for and care after is just like so interesting to me.
If fatal flaw is the male storytelling quest structure of a hero, can we say like forbidden desire? Like, what is that thing that as a woman you want so bad that you keep going after? And that for her is like fascination with mortals. She like cannot kick this thing. We're going to meet Daedalus today. We're also going to talk about Pasiphae and her desires. Pasiphae desires power. Circe desires a cute, wholesome domestic life at home. I think she doesn't know that yet, but I think she's going to come to figure out that that's, in a sense, what she wants, like mortality. That was helpful for me. Thank you for both answering that question. Would anyone like to really just think and marinate on witchcraft and read this paragraph from the bottom of page 83? Let me say what sorcery is not. Liv is being tapped in.
Okay. Let me say what sorcery is not. It is not divine power, which comes with a thought and a blink. It must be made and worked, planned and searched out, dug up, dried, chopped and ground, cooked, spoken over and sung. Even after all that, it can fail, as gods do not. If my herbs are not fresh enough, if my attention falters, if my will is weak, the draughts go stale and rancid in my hands. This is how Zeus felt when he first lifted the thunderbolt. Oh, I love that. I feel like it really ties back into her being like having this love of mortality again. Like it's such a human thing to have to toil for everything. It's what separates them from the gods.
Yes, you're so right. This paragraph, I feel like, goes so well with a quote towards the end of our chapter section when she's watching Ariadne dance. I'm just going to jump there right now because you just said that. It's page 135. Quote, "This is how mortals found fame. Through practice and diligence, tending their skills like gardens until they glowed beneath the sun. But gods are born of ichor and nectar, their excellencies already bursting from their fingertips. So they find their fame by proving what they can mar, destroying cities, starting wars, breeding plagues and monsters. All that smoke and savor rising so delicately from our altars, it leaves only ash behind."
I think in that and in this passage, it seems like she's creating this distinction where like she is trying to create a third category. Like she's describing mortals as this separate, removed thing. She's describing gods in a certain way. And for herself, it seems like she's carving out this category of a witch, which is different in that she has some lines about this, about how witchcraft is basically just like turning time and sweat into things, and how there's like a distinctness from mortality in this because she has like an infinity. Like the reason why she is the person she is because she is able to just try every combination of boiling and cutting and which phase of the moon to pull the roots up out at and all of those things to, I don't know, I like use this like effortfulness, this drudgery to create a new sense, a new vision for herself that really is not like, I don't know, like there's a lot about it that's mortal, but I think that there's this time component and like what she's describing for Ariadne is not something that's really, I don't think that's really available to her either, nor is it really representative of her path through witchcraft and like finding herself.
Yeah, I like that note about the time component. Even though she is in this exile, like the fact that she sees it as a freedom, that time component seems like it's in addition to her freedom, that like if she has to spend the rest of her days alone, at least she can fill that time with whatever she desires. And it seems like she's a person, like I'm assuming that she doesn't have to sleep because she talks so often about how much she loves the forest at nighttime and walking through it and feeling like the cool earth under her feet. I feel like she brings like an immortal lens to a really mortal practice that's really like eye-opening and makes me more appreciative of like the work that we put into our day-to-day tasks to be creators. It reminds me of that quote where it's like, God made me trans so that his creation could share in the power of creating, if you've ever heard that quote.
Mhm.
This is like her godly power of like magic, but like she still enjoys the creation process that like more powerful gods could do in the snap of their fingers.
There's such an interesting relationship between the gods and creating and destroying and mortals and creating, because I think what she's really trying to come to by the end of this section is that the gods, even though they can create, what they ultimately do is destroy, and they're always bent towards destruction. And even though mortals don't all have magic and powers, what they do is create, not through powers and divinity, but through drudgery. And like true creation is through drudgery. And if you have power, the only thing that will come from that is destruction, even if you're creating or like creating for a means of destruction, hence Pasiphae. I also love how many times the word desire has come up already in this episode or the past 23 minutes, because I think also what's so great about her learning how to use her magic and all of this drudgery of this first exile section is her learning that she can only transform and make what she like desires. Like when she's trying to, I think it's a strawberry, right? She's thinking about what she really wants. And when she finally thinks about what she really wants and desires, which is like a strawberry, this thing turns into a strawberry. Her womanly powers as a witch being directly connected to her desires.
Yeah, no, I think it is a powerful feminist parable that like she can't, like there's a limit to the degree to which her ability is there to serve others.
And also that in order to be a witch and to be like called a witch, you have to be somebody who is tapped into your desires in that kind of a way, which is something that people, men, the rest of society is going to find to be dangerous in a woman.
And the reason why she didn't know about her powers this like whole time, when she's been like sleepwalking through life without having enough of a drive to find this out about herself.
Or the space to do so, and the freedom and the time, like Ola and Liv were saying. There's also this question, we were talking about this last week, and we decided that we can't really answer it, but I think it's going to keep coming back, that whether or not her transformation, like the magic, changes the mind and the soul of a thing as well as its outward shape. We felt like there was no way to answer that, at least with what we've read so far. I don't know if you guys have any other thoughts about that. It might be something that we just kind of like put a pin in and may or may not ever come back to.
I thought she said
she takes a clear stand. She says that the mind doesn't transform.
Yeah. So are you saying that maybe it does, even if she thinks it doesn't?
She feels like it doesn't right now, but a lot of other people have said, is it Aedes who's like, you made them into your desires?
He does say that.
Like about Glaucus becoming hot and Scylla becoming a monster.
Yeah. And there's a moment with Scylla where like the way that she is reacting to things seems different than what we would expect from like a fully cognizant, in control, sentient person. Like when she is trying to guess what Scylla's mental monologue is like, it is slow and altered, kind of lacking some sort of control, I guess, that you might expect from someone with like full executive function. I don't know. We can continue to watch the space.
Yeah, we continue to watch the space. I don't really know. I also don't know that it's that important to the project of the book to know the answer to that, or if that's just me like picking on world building things. I like want to know exactly what her power does, and that's not productive. This is also the section where she gets her lion, which is an animal that she's associated with in antiquity, but there's a great article, I'll link it in our show notes. It's on Madeline Miller's website. It's a photo essay where she uses a bunch of different pieces of art of Circe from throughout history and talks about the descriptions of Circe. And she says in this essay, the lion-headed man in this piece of artwork is likely meant to be one of Circe's tame lions. Scholars have debated whether Circe's pet lions are supposed to be transformed men or merely tamed beasts. In my novel, I chose to make them actual animals because I wanted to honor Circe's connection to Eastern and Anatolian goddesses like Cybele. Such goddesses also had power over fierce animals and are known by the title Potnia Theron, Mistress of the Beasts. That put me on a little spiral into researching the goddess Cybele. That's just a cool tangent if you're interested in like all of the different goddesses from throughout that region, Greece, Rome, Turkey, who are like protection goddesses, healing goddesses, nature goddesses that get associated and swept up into Circe.
I'm happy that Madeline chose to keep the lions as actual beasts instead of men, because one, like, it would be so stupid to transform stupid men into a lion. Like, that's so lame. Like, they should be nothing but pigs. I like that in Percy Jackson, they're guinea pigs, which is even funnier. Like, something as lowly as a man should not get to be the prophetic, like king of the jungle. So I like that she made that distinction.
Saoirse Ronan should play Aslan, is what you're saying. Saoirse Ronan should be the voice of Aslan in
Yes.
Greta Gerwig's Chronicles of Narnia.
Yes, I would love that. Oh, don't quote the dark magic to me witch coming out of her beautiful redheaded lips. I would love nothing more.
It took 29 minutes of Ola being back on the podcast to say something about a beautiful redhead.
Don't get me started.
Surprised it didn't happen sooner, honestly.
So she's a witch. This is when we encounter Hermes. Thoughts on the portrayal of Hermes in Circe? This is a character we are very familiar with on this podcast through the Riordan-verse canon and through Lin-Manuel Miranda and that version of him as the father of Luke. I personally find this portrayal of Hermes to be a brilliantly annoying little piece of shiz. Not somebody I would want to spend time around, but also like so totally the perfect second boyfriend for Circe.
He's Kyle from Lady Bird, the perfect second boyfriend.
Yes, I love that you called him the perfect second boyfriend.
Or like literally low-key Timothée Chalamet in real life. Like, I don't know if anyone has seen him at any point in the past year. This is what he gives all the time when he's like skipping the Met Gala to watch the Knicks, or when he's doing his dance with Britney to promote like a movie about Bob Dylan. You know, like it's the same
I know
energy.
what you're talking about. Yeah, when he hit that Soldier Boy.
Yes. Yeah. And as he's hitting the Soldier Boy says like a completed note in theaters now. Yeah, I think
I liked him when he was in Dune. He was good in the second one too. I like him a lot as Paul Atreides.
You should know that Ola is just now hitting her Timothée Chalamet phase that everybody else went through years and years and years ago because she watched Dune.
The thing is, I don't think it's a phase. I think it's waves. I think that we are all on the shore of Timothée Chalamet. We're buffeted.
Him singing that French song and like dancing.
I'm a fourth wave Chalametist.
That's my man.
Ola is a first wave.
But don't we think that is the energy?
I do agree. Yeah, Timothée Chalamet with a mustache is Hermes in this book.
Like that is what he was through antiquity.
He is storyteller and story stealer. There's all these lines where Circe's like, God, he made me want to spill my secrets, or like, I could feel his power reaching for my secrets. He's just trying to get the tea. That's all he cares about at the end of the day is the tea.
Yeah.
And I love that she just uses him back. She's like, we're gonna hook up. I'm gonna enjoy talking with you and hearing what you have to say about other people, but I see you for exactly who you are, like eyes wide open now.
To an extent. Like, she's able to say, like, yeah, I'm not going to have your babies. We're not going to wife up. That's not what you actually want. That's not what I actually want. That part seems fine. And she does seem to be emotionally guarded enough that part of it is fine. However, the whole time, like, throughout the next few chapters, she's constantly being like, you know, I bet that he is being just as shady about me to everybody as he is being to me about everybody. And it's like a recurring anxiety for her that like every time she does something, she's like, I just bet he's telling the story to everyone I hate and hamming it up and picking some contorted extreme angle on who I am to just have the most entertaining possible caricature of my life. And at first she's kind of like, that's okay, we're using each other, whatever. But like it increasingly seems like it's harder and harder for her to stomach that and just keep it pushing, especially when we get to Pasiphae. And all of her like generalized childhood anxieties and traumas are being resurfaced. That's where like the Hermes, I think it makes sense. That it's like harder for her to deal with the Hermes distrust and generalized foolishness when she's so stressed about all this other stuff.
But that's why he's like the perfect second boyfriend.
Yeah.
Because like her eyes are a little more open than before.
Yeah.
But he's still a man. Like,
yeah.
He's still going to be the worst.
Still maybe not open enough.
Yeah. Yeah. Like she's still got to learn. She's
if
got
they were
lessons.
open enough, she'd be a lesbian.
Yes.
Say it again. I also, this isn't like the first time we have encountered like the idea of the power of storytelling as a theme in this book, because she did like figure out what magic was by asking all her uncles about stories and all of that. But it is so great that we have Hermes as the introduction of like the danger of storytelling and whose perspective we're saying these things in and what are the bards going to say and the anxiety about that and who we trust and whatnot. Because this is her telling her story in her own words. We'll continue to watch that space.
Yes. Yeah. Hermes, he does a lot of things for us that are sort of like keeping. He's our only source of outside information. If this like whole section of the book is not to be like a Katniss Everdeen style, like I am in my own head as I roam around by myself and cut clippings and stuff. Like for that to not be everything that's going on, we're focusing a lot on Hermes' stories and his opinions about things. This is the first, I don't know, I guess like we've met other immortals, but in a lot of ways, he is the first like Olympian we're actually having a conversation with. And we're sort of getting a taste for what I guess the true powers that be think about humans and about people in like other entities in general, how they think about power, how they think about what they owe to each other in relationships. And what we're getting is power is very central. Everything is transactional. And like, if you don't have something to bring to the table, we're not going to give it a second look. And that's kind of like the energy we get when he describes mortals in general. Like it's not worth thinking about their suffering. And it's kind of the energy he gives to Scylla. Like he relays the story to Circe, which is kind of like, in a lot of ways, this is the trauma that defines her. Like she's had a lot of stuff going on, not a relationship with the dad, like siblings that are terrible to her. But I feel like as a thing that she has done wrong, this is the trauma that defines her, like a bad thing that she has done that she's constantly trying to atone for. And for him, it really just appears as party gag, I would say. Does that feel like the right characterization to everybody? Like it is there as a trap for her to fall into so that he can turn her into a story. Like everything is turning a story into another story, into a rich tapestry of people becoming, you know, caricatures and jokes.
Yes. Second boyfriend. It also is so interesting as Scylla is this like thing that she can't get over, because Scylla represents the question of, is her creation destruction or is it truly creation? Like, did she do something evil in creating Scylla? Or is it like what Aedes said, like you set her free, you made her better? Like the only true freedom for a woman is monstrosity anyway, and you created something very powerful. Or did she make something that's destructive, which therefore aligns her with the gods and not with the mortals at the end of the day? She's going to keep stewing on that. Yeah. Every time Scylla comes back in this book, I'm like, we're still on this. But it is, like you said, it's her. She's hung up on it.
We're still on this.
I'm a little sad they erased her sister and just made it a whirlpool. Because, like, they're supposed to be two monsters. Like, they are a tag team sisterhood. And I love that they're both, like, woman-coded monsters. So the fact that we lose one of the monsters in this narrative or retelling of the Odyssey made me a little sad.
To which I have to say, again, how many times do I have to ask, where is the, like, sapphic romantasy novel about Scylla and Charybdis, where they are constantly yearning for one another and can never truly be together, but they are always nearby, but they cannot truly touch? Where is that? Because I think it's out there. I just don't have it in my hands. But I feel as though
I don't feel like it's a novel. I think the structure has to be something else.
AO3,
or something yeah, that's what I'm saying. For something that nonlinear, it has to be short story, fan fiction, Sarah Bareilles song. You know, like that's the type of genre.
Sarah Bareilles song. Sarah Bareilles song.
The song Cassiopeia is like basically about this dynamic. Yeah. Anyway, if you want to write this, Sarah, this is your call to action, Sarah, but also any of our other listeners.
Noted listener of Seaweed
whom we can only assume Sarah's is one.
Does Sarah Bareilles listen to the pod now?
She surely doesn't. Our mother is employed.
Let's take a break and then let's talk about going to see Scylla.
Nurses, are you tired of spending weeks or even months finding the perfect job that matches your specialty with your ideal shift and salary? LinkedIn has improved your job search experience. Search by specialty, the shift you want to work, and the salary you want to make. Go to linkedin.com/nurses and begin searching today. That's linkedin.com/nurses.
Note, side effects may include less time finding the perfect job, working a shift that you love with a salary that can take you to St. Thomas, Jamaica, and continuous smiling because of how simple this process was.
The rural way of life is about making everyone feel at home. Tractor Supply chose advanced 5G solutions from T-Mobile for Business to transform intelligent customer service. Together, we put the power of AI to work across 2,200 stores, keeping things running seamlessly inside, curbside, and countryside. This is elevated customer experience. This is Tractor Supply with T-Mobile for Business. Take your business further at T-Mobile.com/now.
So if you've done the reading for today, sorry we're not really summarizing everything, but these are big sections. We're thinking more broader about theme in these episodes. We've got Daedalus coming to the island, saying Pasiphae needs you on Crete. We're going to break your exile. And to get there, we need to sail past Scylla. So we are going to see her for the first time. I didn't have much to say about this other than where's the book. So, Cardi, did you have something to say about this?
Well, okay. For that, like, just to briefly summarize what happened, she transforms herself to look like Perseus because she vaguely remembers Scylla being into him. And that's sort of the ruse that allows them to mostly escape. Scylla catches on eventually, but they're able to get by without anybody dying. To me, what was most interesting about this is like the watching her not just transform herself physically, but pantomime Perseus and the things that she says and does to inhabit that space. She's like doing boy drag. That's like one part of it. She's like physically inhabiting what that is. She like borrows the like smelly furs of the guy who's actually in charge of the boat to like assume this role. And one of the notable things that she does is she like curses herself out. She refers to herself as my bitch sister to pretend to be Perseus. I think that is such a rich moment of her. I don't even know where she is. Is she exercising demons? Is she giving into them? Is she like relishing in her? I don't know. Is this just her fully committing to boy drag because this is what it means to be a man? Is to like not respect women in your life, even if they're related to you? I feel like it's all of the above. But I found this to be a very rich and interesting moment.
It's also, is it the first time she's really transformed herself?
The first time she's transformed herself. And it's, of course, like, it's the first time she's experiencing Scylla. Like, this whole chapter is her coming to terms with it. But I feel like this isn't, like, it's not a satisfying exchange. Like, one might imagine her having this as, like, a moment where she gets closure on this. Scylla transformed. You know, it was a bad thing that she did, but ultimately, like, Scylla was always a bad person. Is still a bad person. We're saving some people. That's that on that. That is not how we end this. She is still very much in her guilt, trauma, everything. I also think it's maybe worth noting that she, like, the sailors are grateful, and she turns it around and gives like I'm going to keep doing boy drag. I'm going to inhabit my father and my brothers and yell at them for daring to be grateful and to have this moment of like emotional vulnerability. I don't know if that's quite the right reading of this, but she's like rude as like a protective, defensive, I can't form these relationships type of thing. I think is a way of also trying to make peace with her guilt, saying like,
yes,
which is like literally what she says in the monologue. Like basically like, this is my fault. You shouldn't be grateful to me. But she says in like a mean way to try to make sure that they don't form these emotional linkages with her and salvation.
It is literally her first experience with the thing that Pasiphae is going to say to her a few chapters later in this section. Like, the gods love their monsters because that's what keeps the fires and the ashes at our altars.
Which Hermes also says.
Yeah, Zeus loves to protect his monsters. How else are his bastard heroes going to get their glory? That Circe created this thing of destruction that is making all these mortals terrified, and now they are like bowing down to her. And before she has even been, really read for filth by her sister, she is so uncomfortable by this that she has to like turn into her father for a moment. God forbid a girl turn into her father and rage at them. Which I do also want to say, I don't want us to lose over these episodes like how much this is a book about a daughter with daddy issues. I really think this is the daughter with daddy issues book of contemporary fiction. Even though he is not present for so much of it, he really looms large, especially in the first two boyfriends, I would say. Trying to get that attention. Woof. Yeah. Daedalus. So we meet him briefly on Iea, and then we sail with him. He gets raged at. And then we get to Crete. Daedalus being the perfect third boyfriend. I think that we all agree, like, we see this growth, right? We're watching this space. We're seeing this growth from Timothée Chalamet with a mustache to Daedalus, who she like notably says is not really cute. Like, she's not necessarily physically like wildly attracted to him, but he has that like patience, that steadiness, that sturdiness, that intellectual fire that is attractive.
You can see the through line. Like, he's like better emotionally than Hermes, but there are still things that they have in common. Daedalus is clever. She's looking for an element of surprise in this. Like, fundamentally, these boyfriends are supposed to like bring variation into her life. But she likes that she's not as like afraid, that he's steadier, that he's not toying with her in the same way. But the other through line is that she speculates within the span of like one page, basically, about both of them being bisexual. And I I was very tickled by that. That's maybe the most, to me, like that was one of the most like, oh, she maybe is a queer woman coded thing that she's like kind of fujoing out a bit. Like she's like, ooh, these boys are all out there trying to get boys.
I love tracking the similarities between the boyfriends because I think that's one of the great joys of being a woman looking back on your life, as she is doing in this book. Like, what were the things that all of those men had in common? Interesting.
This is new. I mean, like, these are both pretty different from Glaukos, but like, you can understand I think these two have like a very clear through line with changes.
But then you get the beautiful thing about Circe is that she can live forever and she could just continually improve and get better and better boyfriends. Like, the rest of us have a limited time.
One of them might even be a girlfriend if we're lucky.
Will we be so lucky? We'll find out. The answer is no.
It's like she could walk on the bottom of the ocean to talk to an old sea god, but God forbid she kiss a girl.
God forbid she kisses the wife of her ex-guy.
Yeah. She didn't challenge enough.
Not on that one. But speaking of women who do challenge, speaking of hot women, Pasiphae. I love Pasiphae. I cannot overstate how much I love this character. Diva, evil queen, monster, slaying. Just the way that she is written with like resting her chin on her hands and being like, ooh, story time. What's going to happen to my son?
Yeah.
You got a prophecy about my monster? And being like, get over yourself. I slept with the bull. Like, can we please move on? She's just
That's the funniest part.
The funniest part of the book.
Line where she says, Daedalus, tell the story of how the Minotaur came to be, and she interrupts him and says, you're going too slow, you're being too gentle. I'll just tell you. I can't even say it. I'm Daedalus. We're like, this is a podcast for all ages now. We can't. She like interrupts it and basically is just like, yeah, like I had sex with a bull. That is how this happened.
Moving on.
She's so indelicate, inconsiderate, unapologetic, but also like I feel like there is a way that you could also over-index on that, and she's just unreproachable girl boss, which she also isn't, because she also is a woman who hates other women and is also like unrepentant, rude to her kids, making everybody miserable, literally is enslaving Daedalus by holding his child hostage and keeps reminding him about it all the time. It's like the full classical evil queen fantasy.
It's the classical, I don't support the glorification of murder, but I do support the empowerment of women. That is why, this is exactly why Lady Gaga said that.
That's a Gaga quote for the young people listening. Yeah.
Yeah. Because we get it. I think it's so, the way that she is written is so well done because we get all of this time to see just how evil she is. And not only like her delightfully diva personality, but also like the bad things she has done. Like killing all of the girls that her husband lies with and like, you know, punishing like you said, like being evil towards her children, all of that. And so like we have this time to be like, okay, maybe we really can't support the justification of murder. But then we get this speech from Pasiphae at the end of the section where she's like, you think I did all of this because I wanted to? I had to do this to survive. Like, what do you think was going to happen to me when I got sold off to King Minos? Like, I had to protect myself. And I do think that that's a wake-up call for Circe.
And a recontextualization, because Circe, up until this point, has had a very clear version of Pasiphae in her head. And when we're meeting her now, later in life, just girl to girl with nobody else around, we find out that like that was maybe like 70% true. Like she is stone cold, like rude, only looking out for number one. Like those are all true. They were never going to be good friends, but she like vastly misread so many other things about Pasiphae. Like she mentally sees Pasiphae as being like a suck up, right? That like through her relationship with Perseus and Helios and all these other male figures in her life, that she like all she wants is to be adored and to like climb her way up the social ranks through her feminine wiles. And and we're able to now find out like, no, that doesn't work for anybody. That is not how she's ever operated. And like the fact that the fact that Circe thinks that is like part of her success, that like she's trying to do both. She's trying to balance the demands of this with also like this reality that at the end of the day, like father, brother, everybody, like she literally, if she didn't have her own power to defend herself in her person, it just wasn't going to happen for her. And for Circe, it's like a huge reality check that like collapses a lot of these illusions about femininity and her like past. Can we talk about the birth scene? We kind of skipped over that. That's like one of the most gnarly
grotesque
passages
with a capital G.
Anything I've ever read.
Absolutely fantastic.
That thing is a certified eater, eating 2.5 of her fingers. He was munching in there. He was hungry. Feed the Minotaur.
What would a book about like mortality and women be without the most disgusting birthing sequence you have ever read? I think this was a must.
Yeah, especially as our first introduction to the real Pasiphae, seeing her simultaneously at her lowest, physically weak, humbled, having this terrible thing happen to her, but also at the same time still keeping her composure, being rude as hell to everybody, demanding, threatening. Chef's kiss.
Yeah, like, and begging Circe for help, like needing her desperately and still making her witness deaths. Like, that's psychotic. That's insane. She's, as you said, a diva to her core.
Diva.
Did anybody else think about Meryl Streep in The Devil Wears Prada at the end of this Pasiphae and Circe reconciliation? Obviously, the situation's a little bit different, but like, I am like, this is to me the iconic reference of all time. They're in the car,
they're in the car
Paris,
with Anne Hathaway,
and she says, "You already did," to Emily. Like the moment of the shocking, actually, we're the same. And her being like, whoa, 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 whoa. I don't think we are the same. But then having to pause and be like, actually, you know what? I never am going to become like you. I don't want that. Your life is not my life. I don't want your life. However, you are so right. You're so real. And I do have a lot to learn from you.
Yes.
As I leave you forever and try to do my own thing.
Wow.
So like Pasiphae literally has that moment where she like, this whole time Circe's like, why am I here? Why did she bring me? She liked all these other people more. She could have like tortured some random nymph. Why is it me? And she says, like, at the end of the day, we're really similar. And I know you know that. Like, you were the only one who gets it. We're the only people who have had this kind of pain in their lives. Nobody else is going to get their fingers eaten off and just roll with it. And that's really real, I think. I was really, like, that was a real moment for me. That was one of my favorite moments when she has to check her. And not just say, like, you're wrong about all these men. They've never respected me. They've never respected you. They've never respected anyone. But then to also be like, look in the mirror. Look in the mirror.
Yeah.
Both positive and negative.
I knew this like emotion felt familiar and I didn't realize it was The Devil Wears Prada. But now I feel like there's got to be also other instances. I just can't think of them, of this exact.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Like the broad archetype of like feminine Faust story is like what The Devil Wears Prada is and what we're getting here as well. Like we've all made the same bargains to protect ourselves. I can't think of that many other examples right now off the top of my head, though. I know they must exist. But like, there can't be that many also because, like, I don't know, like literature about women is not like a super... Anyway, we can continue to think about this.
But also like the way that Pasiphae in like reading her sister is like, we bullied you relentlessly. Like you little like embarrassing piece of crap. But you still stood up. Like, you know, like I hate you and yet you're still here. And that's your power. And you need to like recognize that.
It's both. Something... It's like you come into your power, but also like that was wrong. Like what you let me do to you was wrong, and that was embarrassing for you, and you need to stand up and not do that anymore. But also that turned you into something better that I respect secretly at the end of the day after all this time.
Yeah, it's delicious. It's delicious. Yeah. It's lovely. Which I think brings me to what I want to say about what Liv said about this book being about home and like creating home and finding home. That Pasiphae reads her. Circe realizes that like Pasiphae's way smarter than she ever thought she was. You know, it wasn't quote some perverse whim that led her to create the Minotaur. It was the calculated, our plans are measured in centuries idea that if she creates this monster, she's going to be remembered forever. Like that is her glory. That's her Kleos. And that destruction for the sake of glory and that like violence for the sake of glory. Circe's like, oh, like, I don't want that. That's not what I want. It goes back to like yelling at all the men on the boat when they pass Scylla. The guilt that she has over creating that monster. That's not what she wants. What she wants is actually the homegoing, which is interesting because people like to say in making broad generalizations that like the Iliad is the story about Kleos and glory, and that the Odyssey is the story about like homecoming, and like all Odysseus wants is to like get home to his wife and kids. And like spoiler
but famously
alert,
is not. If he just wanted to get home to his wife and kids, he could have done so.
And that is what Madeline Miller would have to say about it, I would say. And like that's what we're going to find out, that like Odysseus isn't really Like, he's not really the one who's trying to find home. Like, Circe is. And if
Yeah.
Liv, I really feeling like that's the thing that this book has in common with the Odyssey, is like not the characters, but the idea of like trying to get home and finding home in impossible circumstances.
Yeah, but like home isn't necessarily like a journey through obstacles for her. Like home is like a intellectual, material exercise of creation.
To quote Frozen 2, you are the one you've been waiting for all of your life. Show yourself.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes. I don't know how much of that, like, I think the glory reading is right. My first instinct with this Pasiphae, Circe learning juxtaposition situation was that it's like, to me, like, I don't, like, there's the glory component, but I think that we're also led to believe that Pasiphae thinks, and that she's probably right, that if she didn't do this thing with the Minotaur, she would, her life wouldn't go that well. She would be tortured. She would be at the whims of other like male power figures, especially with Minos like getting old and getting angry and all this stuff. Like she needs a new card on the table to protect herself and to like distinguish herself in some way so that she doesn't like, I don't think it's like just instrumental glory to be remembered. It's this idea that she's immortal. And like once the situation with Minos changes, she's going to need another reason that like Zeus or Helios or somebody can't like turn on a dime and like ruin her life, her immortal, eternal life forever, because she isn't instrumental to a man anymore. Like I feel like Circe's takeaway from that is like there's the glory component, but then there's also this like, even as an immortal person, like when we're thinking about the suffering, there's some suffering that is like, I feel like part of her takeaway is there's some suffering that's worth it. Like ethically, there are some situations where like I know that I can withstand pain and that we should choose the pain and choose like sacrifices and selflessness in order to protect other people around us. That there's like some sort of like that like Pasiphae doesn't have a line she won't cross to protect herself, and that Circe does and wants to.
But also Circe was given the opportunity to have a different line because she wasn't married off. You know, like I do think that she understands in this moment that like if she had been sent off to Crete at that age, maybe she would have been different.
Yeah.
But she was put in a different circumstance. We're nearing our ended allotted time. There's a lot that goes on with Daedalus. I think we said the things I was most interested in talking about with him, but I have another question. He's the one who says to her that a golden cage is still a cage, speaking about the Minotaur. But that, I think, starting this section with her feeling like maybe this is a cage, but I'm free in it, and ending this section with her realizing I'm still stuck in a cage. Very important. But he gives her this loom, right? As like a going away gift, like, remember me, your third boyfriend forever. And she's like, I'm not really much of a weaver. But I guess like, let who am I to spoil a good hexameter? Let the bards say what they want to say about me weaving spells and weaving things on my loom. What did you guys think about Madeline Miller's choice to separate Circe from weaving in that way that she is associated with in antiquity? And for her to be like, it's not really my thing, but that's what people say about me.
I think it's kind of whack. Honestly, my main criticism of this entire book is how much Madeline Miller relies on some of the male characters to kind of bring forward the plot in this book. And I get that it makes sense because she is exiled on an island. So obviously the visitors to her island are going to be the ones moving the plot forward. But to take away like this ancient, like, womanly craft that Circe has been known for through all of history, and to make it seem like, oh, it was a gift from my third boyfriend and I just cared about him so much, even though we slept together like twice, that like I'm gonna use it and it's gonna become a part of me. I thought that was really lame, and I would have liked to see a different exploration of weaving in Circe, because I think of this piece as so inherently feminist. Mm-hmm. We see the folly of men, but at the end of the day, we still see the yearning for men. And again, maybe I don't relate to that because I've decentered men as a lesbian. But like, if I could give one very large overarching criticism, is I really did not like that piece.
Oh,
I think that's real. That's really real.
Not the folly of men, but at the end of the day, the yearning for men. Oh no!
Don't feel that no more.
I strongly co-sign that in general. And I feel like this book is like, the project of it is so much about it's like a feminism that is like very aware of men. And it was like this project of her trying to break out of like male defined restrictions on her. And there are moments that feel very reactionary because of that. And maybe not like, ultimately as like female centered as they could be. And I think there are moments where like there are certain femininities in Circe that are kind of denounced in the narrative in service of this idea of her breaking free of restrictions and shackles that I'm not always 100% on board with. And I think weaving is another example of that for that reason also, that I feel like there's several of these moments where like weaving is like such a like historically like domestic sphere thing that I feel like the thought process, we shouldn't death the author. Like, it doesn't matter what the thought process was. I think that the way that a lot of people will read this is being like, yes, Circe's a real feminist because she doesn't weave. She's not somebody who's like bound up in her housecraft. She's a witch. She's doing other things.
She left the tapestry behind at the end of our last section.
She left the kitchen and the tapestry behind. And that, like I can understand the value in that, but I also feel like that is like it's like an approach that has its limits as well.
I feel like that makes sense for the time period in which she was writing this book. Didn't it take her like 10 years to write this? So like thinking about when she started writing this, like that probably made a lot more sense with discussions of feminism at that time, especially in like white women's circles.
Wow. I don't know exactly when Madeline Miller started writing this book, but I do think it's such an interesting context for us to think about, okay, 2008 is actually where this book was born out of. That is a really interesting context, Liv. My last question for you guys is, because I said my one word to describe this book was the Bible, and that each of these sections we're doing is like a different parable and a different lesson we're learning on how to like live like a holy life on earth. What would you guys say is the lesson of the parable of chapters 7 through 11 on how to live as women on this earth?
Don't trust men. Do not trust them. Like, okay, Daedalus, like, yes, you could have trusted him, but like at the end of the day, he played a hand in the creation of the Minotaur. Like, yes, he is a prisoner, but like when given power by like a minor god or nymph, the first thing he did was create destruction. That even he seems like less of a redeemable man to me.
I love it. Don't trust men.
Yeah, that's very fitting. I was gonna say like even your second boyfriend ain't. Let me be child appropriate. Even your second boyfriend sucks. Like it's gonna take time. Like you see a lot of change in her in this, but like it fits in this broader theme of like constant evolution. Like what happens when you give a woman forever to live, and that is why she would be a lesbian. Because think of it. If you ever watch What We Do in the Shadows, that show, they're all just queer because if you live forever, like at some point. Yeah. So that's just my 2 cents.
Wow. That was beautiful. And we also had our own little SNL moment of running afoul of the FCC by denigrating men. Have you all seen this clip where Ego's doing crowd work and she's like, "'Cause men ain't what?" And she points the microphone at them and the crowd all yells shit. And she's like, "We gotta pay a fine."
Oh, beautiful. I don't think I'm even going to answer that question. I'm going to go with Liv and Ola's answers.
Yeah, that covered it.
Thank you guys so much for joining us. Is there anything you want to promote or tell people where to find you?
Please don't find me. But thank you.
If you are 18 or older, you can find me, but you have to be 18 or older. Just because your graduating bio says 2025, that doesn't mean I know you're 18. Please leave me alone if you are under the ages of 18. I am an adult, and I am a scary adult. You do not want anything to do with me.
There we go. That's on establishing healthy relationships with internet creators. Ola, did you want to take this moment to speak directly to your fans? We wanted to give you the platform to do that.
Oh my God. To my fans, I love you guys. It means so much that you've been supporting me on this journey for 5 years. I'm sorry I didn't get to celebrate with you guys yesterday. I have the plague, but hashtag Ola strong.
Yeah.
Hashtag Ola strong. Thank you everyone for joining us. Next week is going to be chapters 12 through 14. It's the Medea and Jason section, and we will have some returning guests. So we'll see you guys then. Thank you, Ola and Liv. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.